Welcome to Going Beyond the Syllabus, conversations inspired by books and powered by experience. I'm your host, Rohini Abhyankar, a new engineering faculty member passionate about exploring how we can bring more innovation to our classrooms. This podcast, supported by Keen, the Kern Entrepreneurial Engineering Network, and facilitated by the Office of Student Development and Success at UNC Charlotte. This podcast is designed to spark faculty conversations that bridge books, ideas, and lived experiences, all to help us go beyond what's prescribed in the syllabus. This episode is inspired by George Couros' book, The Innovators' Mindset, Empowering Learning, Unleash Talent, and Lead a Culture of Creativity. We'll explore how educators can empower students and themselves to think differently, take risks, and create new value in the classroom. In The Innovator's Mindset, Couros argues that innovation in education isn't about technology or trendy tools, it's about mindset. He challenges educators to see themselves as designers of learning experiences that foster creativity, curiosity, and ownership. The book introduces 8 characteristics of the innovator's mindset, including empathy, problem finding and solving, risk taking and reflection, and offers real-world examples of how schools and teachers have embedded these traits into everyday practice. At its heart, Couros' message is simple yet powerful. If we want our students to be innovative, we must first model innovation ourselves. Our guest today is a friend of mine, Dr. Javed Kittur, an award-winning faculty member in the Gallogly College of Engineering at the University of Oklahoma. Dr. Kittur has been recognized for his innovative teaching methods that emphasize curiosity-driven learning, creativity, and student empowerment. His work exemplifies the principles of the innovator's mindset, especially the courage to reimagine how engineering education can inspire lifelong learners. Welcome, Dr. Kittur. We are so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Okay, so to begin our conversation, could you share a bit about your journey as an educator and what drew you to teaching engineering?
Yes. Thank you for that question. I love talking about this because teaching has always been my passion. Even as an undergraduate student, I knew I always wanted to become a professor. I still remember asking my department head what it would take to become one. And she told me to complete my master's degree and then apply for a faculty position, because back then in India, a master's degree was a requirement to take up a faculty position. So that's what I exactly did. And after finishing my master's, I applied, interviewed, and started my teaching career in the fall of 2014. So soon after, I came across something called as Indo-Universal Collaboration for Engineering Education, IUCEE. So they started offering an international engineering educator certification program, which I completed in spring of 2015, the very first year of my teaching career. And that program was actually truly transformative because it introduced me to the teaching learning process, course design, active and collaborative learning, effective assessment, and also how to thoughtfully use technology in my classrooms. So that experience further inspired me to pursue my PhD in engineering education at Arizona State University. I happened to complete my PhD in 2022. So since then, I've been working as an assistant professor at the University of Oklahoma, where I truly enjoy my teaching focused role because I get to teach extensively, mentor students, and also continuously improve my teaching practice, which is exactly what I've always wanted to do.
That's wonderful. And you have also received awards for teaching excellence and mentorship. Could you tell our listeners a little more about that?
Yeah, I did. So fortunately, here at the University of Oklahoma, I am a recipient of a couple of awards, and all of these are teaching focused. So it's always really winning any award is always meaningful, because, especially in this case, it more or less felt like some sort of recognition that was not just focused on the outcomes, but more so the risks that I took, and the creativity that went into experimenting the new approaches to teaching that I actually happened to do. Because early on, I tried many things, whether it was either integrating technology in unconventional ways, or sort of redesigning some assessments to make them more authentic, or even shifting towards more student centered learning. A lot of things were uncertain, but it was really worthwhile that I took those steps, because receiving an award like this sort of affirms that those experiments are actually something that were fruitful, and that innovation in teaching in ways can genuinely enhance learning experiences. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you already mentioned about your journey towards engineering education, but I'm curious to know whether there's a specific incident that you recall that inspired you to pursue innovation in your classroom rather than sticking to traditional methods. Because traditional methods are easy to follow because that is how we have learned things, and we try to emulate our teachers, the teachers and teaching that we have experienced. So, what drove you to trying to be innovative in your classroom?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So in the beginning, I believed that traditional teaching was the only way to teach, because that's how I had always learned as a student. And when I started my academic career in the fall of 2014, I followed the same approach. But then things slowly started to change only after I participated in the IUCE's certification program in spring 2015, because that program sort of opened my eyes to a whole new world of teaching possibilities, right? And I began reading extensively about innovative teaching practices, and started implementing small active learning activities or collaborative learning activities in my classes. So what really motivated me to keep going was my students' response, because they were more engaged, they were more excited, and they were also genuinely looking forward to my class. So I was like, okay, this is an exciting change that I'm seeing in my students, and seeing that positive change further inspired me to keep experimenting more, and to move away from the traditional lecture based teaching towards something that was more dynamic and more student centered approach.
And the last time we spoke, I remember you mentioned a phrase called chalk and talk. So it has kind of stuck with me. So basically, what you're saying here is that you kept your students and their learning as the focus, right? And the
Yes.
book also emphasizes that innovation begins with empathy. So understanding learners' needs. So, how about can you recollect an example of how you apply empathy to your teaching?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I think innovation, in a way, starts with empathy. That's what Kuros talks about in his book. So for me, I think empathy in teaching actually means understanding where my students are coming from in the first place, because every group of students is different, be it in their background, or with the levels of preparation that they come with, or prerequisite knowledge, or also even in what motivates them. So it's really important, and I try to get to know them a little early on in the semester through different approaches. I also talk to them about why they chose engineering, what they find challenging, and what actually excites them in engineering. Once I have that information collected, and once I have that understanding, I can actually design my classes in a way that support my students' learning needs. Um, to be specific, and to provide an example, I try to build in flexibility wherever possible, and give low stake opportunities for feedback, and try to make assignments more meaningful in ways where I can connect them to real world problems. Because I've learned that when students feel understood and supported, they become more open, they become more engaged, and are also more willing to take risks in their learning. And I think that's something that really where innovation in teaching begins. And by meeting students where they are and helping them to grow from there is what an instructor should do and could do. And that's where I think empathy plays like a major role. And I don't see empathy as something being very distinct from teaching with these eight years of teaching that I've had. So yeah, that's where I am, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned you try to understand your students. So, my question, what I am dealing with right now, is how to find that time. So, two questions that I can ask as a follow up: how do you collect that feedback? How do you get to know your students? And secondly, how do you deal with the diverse backgrounds they bring? Because some of my classes, I have students who have taken AP science courses in high school, and they are really well versed with topics. Whereas on the other hand, I have students that don't have that kind of exposure. They are new to science and the basics concept. So how do we integrate a classroom like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can collect data through different approaches. So I generally have like uh, an initial quiz or like a survey that I send out in the first week of the semester, where I just try to understand what's their background, what's their motivation, and why they're actually interested, or what are some of the things that they consider as challenging, or things that they're looking forward to learn. What are some skills that they already have that they think they can bring to the class, and what are some skills they're hoping to learn, right? So that would give me like a broad overview of what are some strengths of the students in my class, and what are some areas that they collectively want to learn, right? So I think with that background, it's going to be really helpful for me to design my day-to-day activities in class. And coming to your second part of the question, like how do I do this in my classroom? So again, as instructors, we are always overwhelmed with a lot of work that we do. So we don't have to try and change our entire curriculum. We can go slow. We can do one thing at a time. We don't have to change everything, because I think innovation is something that starts with one step at a time. And we're trying to make small little change, maybe with one activity or one concept at a time, and try to integrate or build on our students' prerequisite knowledge, for instance. Or maybe there are students who need a little more help, right? You can also form teams and make sure you form teams with some strategy where students are helping each other or building on each other's prerequisite knowledge. So there are different ways that we can try. And again, as I said, we can begin with one activity at a time and try and see how that fares. And of course, with the feedback that you get after that, and as an instructor, you can also evaluate to see how that activity actually went and did students actually learn in the first place. So those are some of the things that you can try, and then eventually you can further build on that if things are actually improving. But yeah, we don't have to change the entire curriculum or entire instructional plan to implement anything whenever we're trying. So we can always start slow and build on that.
Sure, sure. In one of the freshman classes that I teach, we try to build teams strategically, but students gravitate towards their friends and they want to work with their friends. And the team structure gets set early on in the class, and they all sit together. So that's a little bit of challenge, but that's an excellent idea to pair students or form teams where students can leverage from each other's knowledge and experience. Yeah. About trying innovation, go ahead.
Sorry, if I may add, so also here at the University of Oklahoma, we extensively use CATME, which is an amazing tool to form teams. So that's also something that I recommend you looking into. So you can actually set questions in CATME and form teams based on the criteria that you want to set up. So that's also an amazing tool for you to something to try with.
Interesting. I'll definitely look into it. And as you said, we don't have to innovate the whole curriculum or do things. And that's what Kuros also points out. He said that innovation isn't just about doing new things, but doing better things. And so how do we as faculty decide which innovations are truly valuable for a classroom?
Yeah. That's an amazing question. And I also love that distinction, right? Because innovation isn't just about doing something new. It's always about doing better things that really make a difference for our students. That's because they are our priority. So for me, if every new idea starts with one question. So will this make learning more meaningful to my students? That's really important. And if the answer is yes, that's when I'll give it a try. but I don't just change things for the sake of changing or for the sake of novelty or just to show that, okay, I tried this 5 different new things this semester. So I never do that. So I always look for approaches that, in a way, genuinely help students engage more deeply, or maybe think critically, or also at the same time connect these concepts to real world. And as I said earlier on, I usually start small. Maybe I'll test a small little new activity or a tool in one of my classes, and then see how students respond to that. And when I notice more energy in the room and more excitement and more questions, or whenever I see those aha moments, that's when I know it's actually working. And so for me, innovation is really about that continuous improvement, trying new things or learning from what works, and also sort of keeping the focus on what helps students learn best. As I said, our focus is our students, our priorities, our students. We want to make sure that they're learning better. So those are some of the things that I do in terms of starting slow and doing one thing at a time.
Mhm. I like your expression when you say, when you notice more energy in the class, you know. So, Kuros writes about creating a culture of innovation. So, it's not just one thing at a time, but a continuous flow of things that your students experience. So, here at Charlotte, we are focused on innovation, as a lot of engineering schools are. The new common first year curriculum that we have unrolled this semester is an example. And Kuros encourages educators to share what works and what doesn't, as you just said. So, through blogs and networks and conversations and podcasts such as this one.
Yeah.
So, what does that culture look like in your classes or in your department?
Yeah, again, that's a great question. So for me, personally, creating a culture of innovation actually starts with building an environment where both my students and I feel safe to experiment. Also, that environment should be something that would make us feel safe about failing or learning and trying again. So in my classes, I always try to emphasize the fact that there's no single right answer in engineering. So no answer is wrong as well. And it's about exploring those possibilities, thinking creatively, and trying to learn from our mistakes. I generally try to normalize failure. I try to normalize the fact that it's fine to fail, but then we also have to learn from those failures and make sure to not repeat those mistakes. So again, encouraging students also to take ownerships of their projects, sharing ideas openly, and reflecting actually on what worked and what didn't. So that's something that I constantly keep encouraging my students. Also, when students see that their ideas are valued and that their mistakes are sort of intentionally being integrated and a part of their learning, they start taking more creative risks. So that's something that I do. And coming to the second part of your question, with respect to the department level, I think it's again modeling the same mindset, because when faculty start sharing their new teaching practices or collaborate across colleagues or disciplines and celebrate innovation. And this innovation could be in the curriculum design, it could be in integrating the technology or assessment. It certainly builds that momentum and gives them that push. So I think innovation becomes part of the culture, not an isolated effort, which is an important piece. So to me, I think a culture of innovation looks like a community where curiosity is encouraged, experimentation is supported either through colleagues or the department heads or the university, and continuous improvement is something which is a part of our everyday practice.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a very valid takeaway for faculty too, right? That is, if you try something new and you fail at it, then you don't want to be discouraged. You just learn from it and embrace the failure celebration or learning from your failures and model it for your students. So that's another way of teaching that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. So coming to real challenges and opportunities faced by faculty, we talked about it a little bit, but faculty often face heavy teaching loads and curricular expectations. I'm sure you have experienced those pressures too. What small steps have you taken specifically, or that other educators could take to introduce innovation without feeling overwhelmed?
Now that's such an important question, because it's also true, right? Faculty already juggle so much. There's so much we do, And innovation can also sound sometimes intimidating. So, but it doesn't have to mean completely redesigning your course or adding more to your plate. As I said in one of my early responses, I've been co-facilitating a workshop called Developing Understanding and Engagement Together with Dr. Jennifer Murray from the Center for Faculty Excellence at the University of Oklahoma. And I've been doing this for the past 3 semesters, I think. So I always tell educators at our university to start small and try one thing at a time, because maybe it could be like a 5 minute active learning activity. It could be a short reflection prompt at the end of the class, or maybe just using a digital tool to make feedback easier, because the goal here is to experiment in ways that are more manageable and meaningful at the same time. Um, Another small but powerful step is to connect with colleagues, because I think sharing ideas, or maybe co-teaching a concept or just discussing what's working can in several ways spark innovation without feeling like you're doing it all alone and you're isolated and you're trying all these weird things. So weird but yet meaningful. So the key, I think, is to focus on the progress and not focus more on perfection. And even these small changes, when we do it consistently, I think can have a huge impact on the students' engagement and their learning. So once you start seeing that impact, I think it will naturally motivate you to keep going and try to do more to help our students learn better and be more engaged in our classrooms.
Yeah, and my next question is slightly off from our topic, but I think it's very relevant. A lot of teaching faculty or non-research faculty who are teaching classes, they feel as though they're working in a silo. So, what are the strategies that work so that faculty can achieve collaboration and get to know each other, feel supported? So, anything in particular that stands out at your university or that you have seen?
Um, yeah, that's actually an important and a good question too. Again, so at our university, so I'm sure several universities have something called a Center for Faculty Excellence or Teaching Learning Centers. So at the University of Oklahoma, we have something called as Center for Faculty Excellence, and this particular center offers several professional development programs for teachers. So, and there's one program specifically called as Teaching Squares, if I remember it correctly. So this program offers, uh, as a part of this program, I think I got to observe 4 faculty members from who were completely from different engineering majors. Again, I had to observe them with an intention of only learning from their teaching and reflecting on how I could apply those ideas in my classroom. It was such a valuable experience because it gave me a fresh perspective and helped me think about new ideas or new ways to engage my students. I never went there with an intention to critique their teaching, but instead learn from their teaching. So, and again, peer collaboration is really, really important because, as I said in one of my early responses, innovation can really grow in community and not in isolation. And when faculty tend to work together, they share ideas, successes, and even the things that didn't quite work out, right? And that collective learning is what sustains innovation over time. And I've seen how powerful it can be when faculty collaborate, whether it's co-developing a new course module or be it, as I said, observing each other's classes, which I did as a part of the teaching squares. Those exchanges sometimes spark new ideas and give you the confidence to keep experimenting. Um, Also, pure collaboration can create accountability sometimes in positive ways. When you're a part of a group which is always excited about improving teaching, it keeps you motivated to keep trying new things because you are a part of this community who's so excited about trying new things. So yeah, I think for me, collaboration turns innovation from like one uh, time effort to an ongoing culture, and it reminds us all that we're learning together, we're growing together, and that's what makes teaching truly dynamic and fulfilling. So, working in collaboration is something that I would highly recommend.
And Kuros in his book also talks about relationships. So it's not just relationship with the students, but it's also relationship among faculty members, right? So if those are built, then I think everybody will feel supported and connected, and the outcomes might be better. So collaborative activities should. A lot of places are encouraging collaborative activities, and that's wonderful to see.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so this podcast is, as you know, is sponsored by Keen, and they focus on developing an entrepreneurial mindset built around the three C's: curiosity, connections, and creating value. How do these ideas intersect with the book, The Innovator's Mindset?
Yeah. So for me, I think it all starts with curiosity, right? I'm curious to do something. And innovation begins when we start asking better questions, not just what to teach, but why and how students can learn best. And curiosity, in ways, pushes both educators and students to explore, experiment, and also keep improving as we move forward. And then comes connections, and that's where the magic actually happens, because when we connect ideas across topics or disciplines, or even link classroom learning to maybe real world challenges or real world applications, students begin to see how engineering knowledge creates that impact which is going beyond the textbook. And finally, like the other C, creating value, I think is what actually ties it all together. It's about using what we know to make a meaningful difference, of course for students, but broadly for the communities and for the society. And I think that's exactly what an innovator's mindset is all about. So trying to see opportunities to improve, empathizing with people's needs, and also turning ideas into action. So I'd say these three C's, they just aren't complementary to innovation, but I think they are the foundation of innovation. So I think these three C's are really, really important.
That's true. And also a key theme in both, that is Keen and Kuros's framework, is problem finding, right? Which is part of your curiosity, or curiosity is the basis of that. How do engineering educators help students move beyond problem solving, the approach that they come in with, to problem finding?
Yeah. So I think encouraging students to move from problem solving to problem finding is really important. And I think because our students think that as engineers, they're problem solvers, which is true, but then also encouraging them to move from problem solving to problem finding is really important. And this begins with shifting their mindset actually from seeing engineering as merely applying random formulae to viewing it as identifying opportunities where they can create impact. So in my classes, I try to create learning experiences that start with curiosity rather than constraints. For example, like before I introduce a design challenge, I ask students to observe their surroundings, or talk to stakeholders, potential users, and identify some of the unmet needs. And this process, in several ways, will help them understand that defining the right problem is as critical as solving it, because you might find a problem but it's already solved, right? So as engineers, of course, you have to solve problems, but then it's also important that you find the right problem and define it in the right way. Really, really important. And I also emphasize reflection and empathy driven inquiry, which is really important, because unless if they make that connection, they'll find it difficult. And students are always encouraged in my class to ask like why, like, and they can ask this why multiple times. They can map stakeholders to the question. They can think about the broader social and environmental implications their solutions might have, and as engineers, what they can do. So I think these practices, to a certain extent, align closely with Keen's entrepreneurial mindset, which is curiosity, connections, and creating value, as well as what Kuros emphasizes on innovation through empathy and relevance. Because when students start to see themselves as discoverers of problems rather than just solvers, they tend to begin approaching engineering as a field which is creative and more human centered discipline, which otherwise would always be a challenge.
Okay. Uh, to go into very specifics, as a takeaway for our listeners, what's one classroom story that best captures your journey towards innovation?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. One story. Okay. Okay. One story that really captures my journey towards innovation goes back to a time when I first started experimenting with active learning in one of my introductory electrical engineering courses. Uh, I think I decided to move away from the traditional lecture format and introduced small group problem solving activities. And at first, I was honestly very, very nervous because I didn't know how my students would respond. On the first day, there was a bit of hesitation because as I was trying it for the first time. But something amazing happened over the next few weeks because the classroom energy actually changed, and students who rarely spoke or who seemed to be not interested at all, were suddenly leading discussions, and they were involving, contributing, debating their ideas, and even staying after class to actually keep working on some problems. And that's when I realized, oh, when students are actually given that space where they can take ownership of their learning, they become far more engaged and motivated than otherwise. And that experience, I think, really shaped my teaching philosophy in multiple ways, because it showed me that innovation doesn't always require big and these flashy changes, right? Sometimes it's the small shifts that you do, the small changes that you do, like creating a space for just collaboration, or even like that curiosity where students get to ask questions or think through a little more. I think that actually makes the biggest difference. So that's one story that I can think of, and I think I'm building on that as I move forward in my teaching career so far.
Yeah, and this also applies to faculty, and that brings me to my next question. So, if a new faculty member comes to you for advice and says, uh, what can they do to go beyond the syllabus? Where should they start?
Yeah, that's again a good question. And as I'm going up in my teaching career, I am fortunate to have been mentoring several faculty here at OU and otherwise as well. So I think I would tell a new faculty member that going beyond the syllabus starts with going beyond the content, to be honest, focusing not just on what students need to learn, but trying to see on who they are and why it matters to them in the first place. I would encourage them to begin by asking what kind of thinkers, problem solvers, and citizens do they actually want their students to become by the end of the course. Once I think that vision is clear, the syllabus sort of becomes more like a roadmap rather than like a fixed checklist for them. So I would highly recommend that they start small, add one activity that it could be a basic activity where they're trying to connect a concept, a theoretical concept, to a real world challenge or an application, or inviting students to sort of reflect on their learning, and maybe build relationships through curiosity and empathy, which is heavily spoken in Kuros's book. Listening to students' questions, and sometimes they're frustrated. So it's really important to listen out to their frustrations, because these conversations can often reveal opportunities that, as instructors, we can identify and take cues from them for further innovation. So I think eventually, it going beyond syllabus means creating a classroom culture where learning is not just confined to grades or assignments or points, but I think it extends into a meaningful purpose, which further extends into curiosity, and then making a connection to the real world impact, which would make more sense for our students to learn the things that they would be learning in our classrooms.
That's a great starting point for new faculty. Going to the other end of the spectrum, experienced faculty, people who have been teaching for 15, 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
How do you uh, if you're talking to them, then what might you suggest? How do they keep their own mindset fresh and open to continuous innovation? Because there's chance that things could get monotonous and you may lose that freshness. So what could somebody do to stay open to continuous innovation all through their career?
That's an amazing question. So I think I keep my mind fresh by continuously trying to put myself in the shoes of my students in the role of a learner. And every semester, I try something new, whether again, these could be small little things like integrating a new teaching approach or experimenting with generative AI now that we're in the era of generative AI, or co-creating activities with students. Sometimes bringing in students in the learning and designing something or co-creating something can also be super beneficial, and also can be a little fresh to our mindset, and would help us open to this continuous innovation and improvement. And learning with students, as I said, would keep the classroom more dynamic and authentic. That way, you're having them as partners in learning. And also, as I said this also earlier on, is like I make it a point that I engage with the Center for Faculty Excellence workshops and communities at the University of Oklahoma here, because these sessions or these workshops, in several ways, explore me to the different perspectives or evidence-based practices and even new pedagogical tools that in ways continuously spark ideas for innovation, which I might have tried in the past, but in a different way, or there's a new technology, or there's a new pedagogical approach that I have never tried. So, collaborating and reflecting with colleagues through these programs will definitely help remind me that, okay, teaching innovation is a shared journey and not a solo effort. So, I think for me, innovation thrives on curiosity, reflection, and most importantly, empathy, as Kuros also points that out. So I think the moment I stop questioning and I actually stop growing, because I intentionally keep asking what if and why not, both inside and outside of the classroom. If I don't keep questioning myself about how my students are learning, what if and why not, I don't think I will continue to have that fresh mindset or have that approach to help improve my students learn. And I continuously innovate to help my students learn better.
Yeah, there's a quotation at the beginning of the book. I believe it says, I'm paraphrasing, if you stop learning, you start dying, or something like
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
something on these lines. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we are kind of coming to the end of the podcast here. So I have some questions from readers.
Okay.
So the first question reads, engineering programs are already packed with required content for accreditation. How do we apply the less is more principle while still covering essential technical foundations? What could we spend less time on or allow for deeper learning?
Yeah, that's actually an important question, because yes, engineering programs are already very content heavy, and I truly believe less is more principle is about being intentional with how we use our class time, because every course has topics that students can effectively learn on their own, what I generally like to call the self-study components. So as instructors, our job is to identify those pieces and guide students to explore them outside of class through readings, short videos, or online modules, or some other format of learning. That way, we can free up valuable class time for the concepts that actually need deeper engagement, and the ones that benefit from maybe more hands-on practice or discussions or collaborative problem solving in the classroom space itself. So I think it's not about teaching less. I would say it's more about teaching better by focusing our energy on what truly helps students connect theory with real understanding. And I would also try and work within these fixed parameters that we have, and try to look at it as an opportunity than as a limitation, but still trying to work within those constraints to make sure I provide rich learning experiences and deeper learning experiences for my students.
Mhm. And this next question is also not just a reader question. I have that question uppermost in my mind, as I'm sure majority of the or most of the educators have on their mind. Is how can we shift from seeing AI as a shortcut to seeing it as a thinking partner, a catalyst for students and for faculty to ask deeper questions, test ideas faster, and focus on creativity and judgment rather than rote output.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I could share maybe one message with like the new educators about generative AI, it would be something like this. I think I would say, don't fear it. I would say, learn to partner with it thoughtfully. So, don't fear it, but learn to partner with it thoughtfully. So, I think generative AI is not here to replace your teaching or your creativity. It's here basically, I think, to expand what's possible in the classroom. The key is to approach it with curiosity and intentionality. So start small, maybe using AI to brainstorm examples, generate prompts, or help students see multiple perspectives on a specific problem. But always make learning process transparent. Let students see how AI can support critical thinking rather than just the shortcuts. Um, I also, I think, would encourage educators to model ethical and responsible use. Talk about it, like talk about the authorship, talk about the biases it brings in, and the accuracy openly. I think we have to make our students AI literate. I think only then they will appreciate the value of using it, and also being honest and open about how they use it. Also, at the same time, I think remembering that the goal isn't to make students dependent fully on AI, but to make them AI literate, as I said, which means that help helping them to learn when and how to use these tools effectively and when not to. Because I think we have to set those examples for them to understand. We have to educate them in the first place. I think eventually what it boils down to is generative AI. It can be more or less a catalyst for deeper learning if we design experiences that sort of focus on higher order skills like analysis or creativity and deeper reflections. So, as educators, we don't have to have all the answers right now, right? We are learning as every day passes by. We just need to be sort of willing to explore, also learn alongside our students, and keep them and keep the connection more so the human connection at the center of teaching, but still acknowledge that AI is here to stay, and we have to meaningfully uh, start integrating it in our teaching and learning processes.
Mhm. Have you tried designing assignments where AI supports exploration, but students must reflect on their process and decision making?
Oh yes, absolutely. So I've this. I think this is my fourth year at the University of Oklahoma. I think starting last year is when we've been intentionally using AI in our classes. So, for example, for one of the freshman classes that I teach, we have students. There's a required assignment called a term paper where students actually are required to find an engineer or a scientist where they see a connection with them, and they have to write a term paper which is 5 to 7 pages. So, as a part of this term paper, we have specific instructions in the assignment where they're required to look up their background information manually as well as through AI, and then critique it and see which is more accurate and what are some flaws in the AI output, or what are some flaws that they might have because their research might have not been as rigorous as it should have been, right? So, likewise, there are several ways we're trying to integrate AI where students actually get to use it but also acknowledge that they're using it. They're critiquing the information. And I think through this process, we're teaching them that, yes, you can use generative AI, but at the same time, be aware that not everything that the generative AI is outputting is correct, it's accurate. It has to be something that you need to critique intentionally, validated with existing resources, and make sure that you're providing a response that is just not given out by AI as is. A lot of the times, the references that the generative AI gives are incorrect. So I think it's a part of a process where we're trying to educate them and help them to learn. Uh, and we are trying to do this intentionally through some of our assignments. I also do it in my other courses as well, but that's one example that I can share with the educators for now.
Sure. There's also a question of being equal opportunity when it comes to tools like AI or maker spaces. The other day, there was a student in my office who was telling me that he knows someone who has a paid version of one of the AI tools. And he said that it has a voice feature. And he was very impressed with the tutoring ability of that feature. So he said, I ask questions and this voice talks to me. So that's a privilege, right? So not
Right.
all students have access to that. So how do we make sure that everybody gets similar access to tools? And this is one example, but maker spaces and solving design challenges. How do we make it inclusive?
Yeah, that's definitely a relevant question. And as educators, I think we're often we are facing this as a challenge because not everybody has access to equal resources. So I think as instructors, we can try and find resources with different. There are a lot of open source resources as well, right? So as instructors, we need to go a step beyond to do a little more search and find some of these resources that our students can use for free. There are several versions, but again, be it a paid version or I think an open access, I think these tools will definitely have challenges, or they will have some restrictions that I think our students should be made aware of, because not everything that comes out of these tools is fully correct or fully relevant, right? So um, also in terms of other resources, right? So at least at the University of Oklahoma, we have a team on our campus who's constantly trying to help us know the different resources, different tools that our students can make use of. And we try and talk about it in our classes whenever we get an opportunity. We have several workshops that are trying to educate our students and faculty alike on these different tools. There's several workshops, there's several trainings, several sessions that I think educators can be a part of and students can be a part of too. I myself attended several workshops on AI and how I can use it in my teaching and learning. Again, coming back to your question, I think that challenge is something that's been there for quite some time. We're trying to see what best we can do. And as I said, if we intentionally integrate something and we give that as an example, saying, for example, I can ask my students to specifically for a specific assignment if they could use Notebook LM or Gemini or ChatGPT or something else, some specific tool, Perplexity AI or something else. I think I'm trying to understand what is the max that I want them to extract from the AI. Is also something that I can intentionally design as an instructor so that anybody who has access to a full version or a paid version would not be required to use that feature. And everybody is still trying to use the minimum features of those or functionalities of those tools to get the information that they're required to. So I think in certain ways we can model our assignments or homeworks to let them use the minimum functionalities and not go beyond the features that are not generally available in those unpaid versions.
Thank you, Dr. Kittur, for sharing such thoughtful and practical insights. Your examples do overlap with what George Couros calls the innovator's mindset, not just embracing change, but leading it with curiosity and compassion. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Going Beyond the Syllabus. I am Rohini Abhyakar, reminding you to stay curious, keep experimenting, and always go beyond the syllabus. Until next time.
All right, thank you. It was lovely chatting with you.